Comic paneling basics. The most important thing your panels need to be is very clear in what order they are read. There are only a few rules that will cover all you need to know about how to lay out panels clearly. For my examples, I will be using the direction that Western comics are read. The same rules apply to Eastern comics, simply reverse right and left. There are two main types of panel arrangements in comics: vertical and horizontal. Vertical panels will always be read from top to bottom. Horizontal panels will always be read left to right. Now, let's combine them. If we have a vertical stack, it will always be read from top to bottom first before moving right to the next panel. You can also reverse the order, and it would be read like this. Let's get more complicated. Now we have two rows of comic panels. Just like with reading a line of text, the reader will complete the top row before moving left again and starting the second. Now, let's look at a bad comic layout, with the same types and number of panels. With this layout, rules are being combined. Is it two vertical stacks next to each other, or is it two rows of panels? The ambiguity makes this confusing and unclear to the reader, since it could be read in two ways. In the previous example, cuts between things were offset, clearly defining them as their own row. Here is another bad layout. There is no clear cut between rows or columns, so it gets incredibly confusing. It could be read like this, or like this. From these examples, we can learn that a well-laid-out comic has clear distinction between its rows and columns. Let's look at some more good layouts that utilize this. This one would be read like this. Next, this one. And in this one, we can see that the horizontal panels don't need to be rectangles all the time. As long as it's clear that it's meant to be read horizontally, it doesn't matter what shape the panel is. Now, let's get crazy with it. There's a lot going on with this layout, but it is still clear how the panels are meant to be read, because our columns and rows are distinct from each other. But maybe we shouldn't go this crazy. Just because we know how to read it doesn't mean it's not overwhelming. There is definitely such a thing as too many panels on a page. If you have 20 panels on a page, each panel is going to be super small and hard to see. For me, a page with a lot of panels is 7 panels. You may be able to fit more panels on your page comfortably, depending on how long or wide your pages are. Many American-sized comics can have 10 panels fairly regularly. Pages can have only 1 or 2 panels and be complete too. Effective comic pages don't need to be made with fancy panel shapes or groundbreaking layouts. The rectangle is a good, honest shape that will get you very, very far into making a beautiful comic. So when do we use big panels or small ones? Big panels are good for establishing shots, or big, dramatic, or important moments. Medium panels are good for normal actions. Small panels are good for small details, like eye or hand movements. How do you frame the characters and/or background in the shot? This subject has a lot of crossover with filmmaking. Different types of shots communicate different information. First, we have what's called a long shot or a wide shot. This gives the audience information about everything around your subjects, which is very good for establishing shots, which should always happen at the start of a new scene where the location changes so the audience knows where your scene is happening. Next, we have a full shot. This shows the entire body of a character and is good for communicating motion. A little closer up, we have a medium-long shot, stopping at the knees of the character, good for communicating body language happening on the top half of the body. Next is a medium shot, which similarly is good for top half body language, but instead we only see the character up to the waist. Wikipedia lists medium close-up and close-up as different categories, but honestly I find the distinction a little too granular. This is a shoulders up shot, good for focusing on expressions. The extreme close-up gets very close to the face, another one for showing emotion. This one is apparently called an Italian shot, and it only shows the character's eyes. Very dramatic and striking. The closer you are to a subject, the more intimate the shot will feel. The closer you are to a character's face, the more the audience is told to pay attention to their expression. A very zoomed out shot that features a character can feel very lonely and distant, or it can convey a sense of grand scale and awe or thoughtfulness. A well-paneled comic will have a variety of these kinds of shots to make it feel dynamic and interesting to look at. Especially if you have a longer conversation between characters, you want to have several kinds of shots so that you don't just have heads talking at each other. Think about how your characters are reacting, what they are doing, etc. Do not forget body language while talking. Many people talk with their hands or fidget during conversation. What should you even put in a panel? I made this guide because a friend was interested in a guide for comic paneling. One of their questions was about what parts of your story to make into a panel. How do you choose? And this is a question I did not think of initially while making this guide, since it's so instinctual for me. And after some practice, it will become instinctual to you. But let's talk about it. Fundamentally, a comic is a series of images that tell a story. In order to understand this story, we need to know where a character is, where a character is going, what a character is doing, and what a character is saying, if they are indeed saying anything. All of these elements need to come together to depict a coherent timeline. In this respect, a comic is very similar to a storyboard for animation. Storyboards, of course, break movements down into more parts than a comic needs to. There are still cases where a comic can become more storyboard-like in detail if you want to convey a very specific or complicated motion. This shouldn't be used all the time since you're making a comic and not a storyboard, but it is a tool to have in your back pocket. In order to turn our story into a series of images, we need to write down our story and make decisions from there. There are different ways to script. Some people are very detailed with it and even break it down panel by panel. My scripts are very much not that, and are primarily dialogue with minimal physical direction. If you're writing and drawing your own comic, all that matters is you understand what you're writing. Working with other people necessitates a bit more clarity. I'll show you a section of my script and the page it turned into, and try to walk you through my thought process. First, we'll start with a page with dialogue on it. Ace gathers his courage. Ace: what exactly did you do to me? Beast: a great many things. Join me so we may speak in private. A shadowy hand extends from the mirror. Ace hesitates for a moment, then takes the hand. The first 3 panels are an example of me breaking down a movement into more parts, like a storyboard. Ace gathers his courage is a nonverbal direction, necessitating the use of body language. So, I told the story of gathering courage in 3 images: initial fear, then hiding his face and therefore withdrawing into himself to think, and then lowering his hand and looking at the source of his fear and addressing it with dialogue in the 3rd panel. Beast: a great many things. Join me so we may speak in private. A shadowy hand extends from the mirror. The next 2 panels are the Shadow Beast addressing Ace and extending a beckoning hand. This one is fairly straightforward in the script. A close-up of the beast's face to connect with the audience and convey the sinister nature of the beast. Then the friendly beckoning hand extended towards Ace. Ace hesitates for a moment, then takes the hand. This is another fairly straightforward one. The last 2 panels depict this set of actions. I decided to keep Ace's expression unsure in the 2nd panel, even though he is taking the hand. He's still dealing with a freaky monster after all. Okay, let's look at a page with no dialogue at all. Ace crosses his arms and looks betrayed. Ace is looking at Lorenzo in this moment. Lorenzo's expression is one of pity/regret for a moment until he looks past Ace into the mirror and sees the Shadow Beast glaring at him. Lorenzo's expression hardens. Ace crosses his arms and looks betrayed. Ace is looking at Lorenzo in this moment. Easy. First panel. Ace is crossing his arms and looking betrayed, and he's looking at Lorenzo. Exactly what it says on the tin. On the previous page, there's wider panels with both of the characters in frame, so I didn't need to convey Lorenzo specifically in this panel. Lorenzo's expression is one of pity/regret for a moment until he looks past Ace into the mirror and sees the Shadow Beast glaring at him. Lorenzo's expression hardens. 2 sentences have evolved into 6 panels. There is a lot of focus on Lorenzo's emotions here, so I used a lot of very close-up shots on him. Specifically, I wanted these emotions to be conveyed more subtly by the character, with a lack of body language. So more zoomed-out shots would have been wasted here, and not convey the right information. Lorenzo's expression is one of pity/regret for a moment until he looks past Ace. This has become 2 panels because it is conveying 2 actions. First is being pitying and regretful. Second, he looks past Ace into the mirror and sees the Shadow Beast glaring at him. The next panel, we see where and what he's looking at. First, as a wider shot to include the context of Ace not noticing the beast behind him. Then, on the next panel, we see the beast's face again to show the audience its malice. Lorenzo's expression hardens. This is told in 2 panels, because, much like Ace gathers his courage, it is a character going from one state to another. In order for Lorenzo's expression to harden, it first must be softer. I hope this helps. It's a bit of an abstract thing to explain. Well, this is about all I have to say on the subject. As with anything, practice makes perfect. Also, learn from comics you enjoy. Study what they're doing with their panels and shots, and compare that to what you learned here. Happy comic making!
Hey, if you liked this video, you should nuke the like button from Orbit, and also leave a comment and subscribe. I also have a shop where I sell art, and also I make dice bags. And you can read my webcomic also on my website. Yeah. Thank you.